So at Environmental Health Trust, I work on maintaining a database of policy moving forward on wireless and electromagnetic radiation. This November, the State of New Hampshire Commission on 5G released 15 recommendations to the governor of New Hampshire after a year-long intensive investigation where they interviewed numerous experts, including scientists of the National Toxicology Program, to consider the health impacts that are posed by 5G. The recommendations that they made include a resolution to U.S. Congress to require that the FCC commission an independent health study and a review of the safety limits, to engage agencies to develop radio frequency safety limits that protect trees, plants, birds, insects, and pollinators, because the current FCC limits, and in fact any limits that have been set by governments, none of them were set or designed to protect our natural environment or wildlife. Engage the FCC to do an environmental impact statement. Require 5G structures be labeled and radio frequency radiation measured. Establish radio frequency radiation free zones in commercial and public buildings. Use wired connections, not Wi-Fi, in libraries and schools. And that the health agency should educate on how to minimize radio frequency exposure with multimedia public education efforts, especially for pregnant women and babies. Oregon State passed a bill investigating the impacts of wireless, especially to children. Resolutions have been passed in Hawaii County, Farragut, Tennessee, Easton, Connecticut, calling to halt 5G. There are several city ordinances restricting the deployment of 5G in small cells. So, for example, in Los Altos, California, the installation of small cell towers on public utility easement in residential neighborhoods is prohibited, and there are 500-foot setbacks for schools, and we have links to all of those city ordinances on our website. Now, over 20 countries recommend people, especially children, reduce exposure to cellular radiation, especially to their brain. And what you're seeing here is the back of a bus in Cyprus, where they have an educational campaign for parents to protect their children. And the translation of this poster is, "Don't irradiate me, learn how to protect me." Wireless has actually been removed from the neonatal units of Archbishop Makarios Hospital, and the country has a large-scale multimedia public education program running in the country. Now, many countries have limits for cell tower exposures, which are far lower than FCC or ICNIRP limits. And here are some examples of countries which have more stringent limits in regards to the 900 megahertz electric field. However, the wireless industry is stating that in order to deploy 5G, those countries with strict limits need to weaken their limits in order to fully deploy 4G and 5G in the country. Industry has been working hard to have countries actually change their limits, and they've been successful in Poland and Lithuania, who now change their limits to allow more radiation to accommodate 5G. There is now a campaign by industry to get Russia to change their more stringent limits as well. In Italy, over 600 municipalities have passed resolutions to halt 5G until scientific research demonstrates safety, especially for long-term exposures. We have a page at ehtrust.org with international policy to halt 5G across the world, and these are just a few examples. In addition to the 600 cities in Italy, there's a growing list of municipalities from the United Kingdom to Croatia, Ireland, France, Bulgaria, Germany, Cyprus, Bulgaria, Australia, where they have resolutions to halt 5G. Kalamata, Greece, was a test city for 5G, but once the people understood the health and environmental impacts posed by 5G and small cell densification, they reversed course and decided not to continue with the company. Several countries have launched safety reviews. However, the outcome has been the echoing of industry, in fact, because the panels were industry tied. They concluded that non-ionizing radiation has not been proven to be harmful. However, the Switzerland Parliament, after their review, refused to weaken their stringent radiofrequency radiation limits. And in France, the health authority has a comprehensive research investigation that's been going on for months, and that's going to be coming out next year. We also document on our website the hundreds of scientists and doctors around the world issuing resolutions to halt 5G and protect the public and the environment. We have documentation on the environmental organizations that have issued reports, such as one of the largest nature conservation associations in Germany, which found the majority of peer-reviewed studies found effects to insects in a recent study that just came out in September. Wireless companies warn their shareholders of risk, but not their customers nor residents. Crown Castle's annual report states, if radio frequency emissions from wireless handsets or equipment on our communications infrastructure are demonstrated to cause negative health effects, potential future claims could adversely affect our operations, costs, or revenues. We currently do not maintain any significant insurance with respect to these matters. In fact, most wireless companies have similar statements on their annual reports as well. And they don't have insurance because insurance authorities rank non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation and 5G as high risk. And insurance companies generally have an exclusion, as they don't cover damages related to non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation. 5G and the Internet of Things is not a sustainable technology. Pollution, human rights abuses, and environmental destruction have been documented at every stage of the life cycle of a device, from the conflict minerals to the inhumane worker conditions and toxins in manufacturing harming workers, to the radiation exposure to children, the public, trees, birds, and bees, to the electronic e-waste. We need to use technology responsibly instead of rushing into something that hundreds of scientists are warning us about.
You may have heard that because 5G only gets 1/64 inch or a few millimeters into the skin, it can have no biological effect. Well, whoever has told you that doesn't understand basic biology. It is now understood by this image taken from a 2019 peer-reviewed article in a clinical microbiology review that the skin-associated lymphoid tissue is critically important to the immune system, and that things that affect the skin affect the entire body. Think of how well you feel when after the rain you go outside and have a little sunlight on your faces. It affects your whole body. The same thing is true. The skin exposure can affect keratinocytes and the epidermis, which is at the surface of the skin, which then infect the Langerhans cells that can in turn affect major histocompatibility complex, interleukins, tumor necrosis factor, and other things that affect how well your immune system functions. As an example of the ability of the skin to resonate with 5G, this is work done by Dr. Benny Shai in his laboratory at Hebrew University with optical coherence tomography, where you see from the epidermis, the skin duct, the sweat ducts go down into the skin where they have an effect throughout the body. The sweat ducts resonate like small helical antennas to absorb and reflect that radiation. Thinner skin will absorb more, thicker skin will absorb less, and this work has been published in peer-reviewed journals showing that the skin does have a biological response to millimeter wave technology. Millimeter waves are intensely absorbed into the skin, as you can see from these illustrations from the work of Professor Paul Benny Shai, reproduced here. More information can be found on our website about this. Now, I want to turn next to some modeling work that has been done based on open source information that can be accessed around the world of existing networks in Austin, Texas. And what you see on the left in the red circles is the existing coverage of the LTE. And what you see on the right is the proposed deployed 5G network. And the bottom line is to show you that there will be much more dense exposure to radiation throughout the system. You can turn off your phone, but you can't turn off the network. This is what it looks like in another density map made by these researchers published in the IEEE World Forum on 5G. What they have shown is that 5G infrastructure, when combined with existing infrastructure, will create levels of radiation that cannot yet be classified as safe for the public. And they urge a rethinking of exposure in 5G networks, with which we completely and heartily agree. Just to be clear, when 5G is implemented, outdoor exposures will increase exponentially, as indicated here in this mapping of the power density that will take place with a fully deployed 5G network for the town of Austin, Texas. This is why, once fully employed, there will be no way to escape exposure to the 24/7 operations of the 5G system that will be required. If you'd like more information, please go to our website at ehtrust.org, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have